So today I'm going to be talking about what I think is the biggest M.2 SSD cooler ever, maybe, who knows, and I'm going to be talking about whether it's necessary or completely ridiculous and pointless. So a Chinese manufacturer has made this cooler for M.2 SSDs. As you can see, an M.2 SSD would go right in here, and then there's a heat pipe going through this, so it helps dissipate the heat. Now, immediately when I saw this thing, I thought back on my Raspberry Pi days about this thing, which is a tiny little tower cooler that you could put on your Raspberry Pi. And it's also a complete overkill. Even if you're overclocking your Raspberry Pi, you really don't really need that. So yeah, this is the cooler that you can get. So SSDs are getting a lot faster, and they do need more cooling with that because they just suck in more power. There's just more waste heat. So these days, the thing is, you usually, on high performance M.2 SSDs, you get little tiny heat sinks, either made from aluminum or copper. And then you can also get the aftermarket versions, which sometimes have a little fan strapped on top of that. Now, a lot of people say these are completely unnecessary, but the thing is, I have a Samsung 970 Evo Plus, I think, and that thing was actually running hot with just my motherboard's heatsink on top of it. And, the whole reason behind that was not because that wouldn't be enough cooling for the SSD, it's just that my RTX 3070, that's like right below the SSD, was producing so much heat that the SSD would just run hotter. So I actually had to strap, I think it's a 60 millimeter fan actually. So it's about the same size as this thing, to help cool it down, because these SSDs don't really need strong cooling on their own. But especially if you have like an RTX 3090 and you're rendering stuff on it, or you're crypto mining on it, you're producing a ton of heat that's going right on top of your SSD basically. And depending on how your airflow is, it might be running a little bit hot. Now, this is definitely an overkill, and there will definitely be better solutions when PCIe Gen 5 and 6 SSDs come out, because those might actually have way higher cooling requirements, because they might be sucking just a lot more power. But there's probably gonna be a little bit more elegant solutions than this thing. But basically, do you need this thing? No, you probably don't. But do you want this thing? Yeah, probably, because look at how ridiculous it is. It's so cool. It's like, it's such a conversation starter if somebody sees it in your PC. It's like, what are you doing? Oh, it's just a cooler for my SSD. So obviously you have better options out there. Like I said, you have those little heat sinks. You even have water blocks that you can then connect into your water cooling loop, and you can essentially be water cooling your NVMe SSD. So you do have nicer, cleaner options. If you want to really hardcore cool your NVMe SSD, you don't want to go too crazy as well, because it's actually not great for the NAND flash to run too cold. The actual controller on the SSD, that produces a lot of heat, and that does need to be cooled quite a bit. But the NAND flash, you actually shouldn't cool that much, because you can actually lower the performance. You can actually lower the lifetime of that particular NAND flash. So you do have to be careful so you don't go too overboard with your cooling. But yeah, like I said, an elegant solution these days, if you needed really strong cooling for an NVMe SSD, is to just get one of these little heat sinks that then just have like a little 40 millimeter, I think, fan, might be smaller, fan, then just strapped to it. Or you just get one of the beefier heat sinks, and you're probably gonna be fine. Water cooling, who knows? Water cooling might not even be great for the SSD. It might be a little bit too cool. Who knows? But anyways, I just wanted to share this. It reminded me of the Raspberry Pi thing. It's so ridiculous. It's cool. It's awesome. It's sort of like having RGB stuff in your computer. It's ridiculous, and that's why it's cool.